Hey, I'm here at the Conowingo Dam in Darlington, Maryland. The Conowingo Dam sits near the mouth of the Susquehanna River, which flows into the Chesapeake Bay. And this river provides about 50% of the fresh water that actually enters the bay. With so much water and such a big portion of that water entering the bay passing through the dam, I thought that the dam itself may have a pretty big impact on the health of the bay. So I came here to learn more and take a look at it and see the good and the bad. So let's start with the good. For me, the most obvious positive impact that the dam provides is a renewable source of energy for the area. It runs on water and gravity, and you don't need to burn fossil fuels to provide electricity. Over the course of a decade, you'd had to burn about 7.5 million tons of coal to produce that much energy, and overall, the dam prevents about 880,000 tons of greenhouse gases from entering the atmosphere each year, which is great, and it's hard to argue with that. Overall, it provides around 55% of Maryland's renewable energy. Oh, and it's also a good spot for bird watchers. Bald eagles make their home here from fall to spring, basically because it's an easy spot to catch fish. This day, I only saw a common vulture, but that's okay because they play their own important role in the ecosystem. So that's some of the good, but what about the bad? What's most important for you to know is that the dam has lost its trapping capacity for nutrients. So, what does that mean and why are nutrients bad? Well, behind the dam is a reservoir, and that reservoir used to collect and stop nutrients from entering the Chesapeake Bay. You can kind of think of it as like a giant bowl sitting behind the dam. The problem is, after almost 100 years of service, the reservoir or bowl has filled up. It no longer can trap and hold any nutrients and sediment. So why is this bad for the bay? Well, it's harmful because nutrients fuel algae growth, and algae blooms not only block sunlight from reaching the bottom of the bay, impacting submerged aquatic vegetation, but they also deplete the water of oxygen, which creates dead zones in the bay. So it's really important to keep the nutrients, mostly nitrogen and phosphorus we're talking about here, from entering the bay to begin with. Each state has in the watershed area has its own agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency, which promises to reduce nutrients. These agreements include a watershed implementation plan that each state creates, which explains how they're going to reduce nutrients in a specific and measurable way. Now, the Conowingo Dam plays such an important role in that and has such an impact on the bay and the nutrients that enter it that the dam itself is included in the agreement and it has its own watershed implementation plan as well. Their plan mostly focuses on stopping the nutrients from the source, thousands of miles upstream. You can think of like farmland and urban runoff, for example. But there's plenty of environmentalists out there that think that the dam hasn't done enough to prevent harm to the bay, leaving taxpayers to foot the bill for any sort of cleanup or restoration needed. With the reservoir completely filled and no longer trapping nutrients, it's clear that more needs to be done by the dam to prevent any further harm to the bay. One thing that most parties agree with is that the nutrient runoff needs to be stopped at the source. The dam doesn't produce nitrogen, it doesn't produce phosphorus, it just doesn't block it from entering the bay anymore. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you think that the dam is doing enough or not enough for the health of the bay? Feel free to comment below and let me know about the impact that you think it's having. Take care.